I'm very proud to say that today our group is internationally recognized.
Does he have a group of executives who are bitter rivals and only answer to him directly? He asked. He did. Does he micromanage trivial matters but leave important decisions deliberately vague and then blame others when things go wrong? Again, Malloy admitted that he did. How does he treat his family? Like slaves? The man's off his head, said Pitt Akins. He'll end up bringing his whole empire down around him. As for Maxwell himself, Pitt Akins felt the future was equally bleak. He'll probably die unexpectedly, perhaps in some sort of explosion. When Malloy pointed out that Maxwell had claimed that he wanted to leave a great heritage for his children, Pitt Akins offered a prediction of his own. He'll leave nothing to them, he said, just ashes.
And now for our home and studio audience. Here's whose house it is.
At the time of his mysterious death, Robert Maxwell had run rings around the entire establishment and racked up debts to the tune of £700 million. He'd hidden the nature of his illegal business dealings by propping up one company with another, buying something only to asset strip it and have it pay off another area. The web of collusion he had created was international. Maxwell or an associate would take funds out of MCC, the pension fund included, and transfer them to one of his shell companies. The shell company would then send them to an offshore trust which bought up shares, meaning that there was not a trail that led directly to Maxwell, and the stock was artificially inflated. When eating a watermelon, Maxwell would spit the seeds onto the carpet for someone else to pick up. He would stand at the top of Maxwell House on his helipad and urinate on those below him. People claimed that he even enjoyed doing so directly on the heads of those below him. There was even an internal gutter that ran around the building. There was no embarrassment for him in such things. And if he didn't like you, he would make your life hell. Peter Jay, who worked under Maxwell, fell victim to his ire. Maxwell would ring Jay at 4 a.m. just to ask him what the time was. In another instance, Jay was just about to walk his daughter down the aisle when he heard Maxwell was trying to reach him. Even between Maxwell and his daughter, Jay chose Maxwell. He would eat the food off of his employees' plates and throw telephones at their heads. Robert Maxwell was born Jan Ludwik Hock in modern-day Ukraine, then a part of Czechoslovakia, in 1923. His upbringing was one of abject poverty. He escaped to France during World War II and joined the Czech Legion in Marseille. Then he made his way to Britain, where he joined the British Army. He rose to the rank of captain and received a military cross presented to him by Bernard Montgomery. After buying the rights to distribute German academic papers, he took over a small academic publisher, which later became Pergamon Press. During the 1980s, he aggressively expanded his business empire, with the result that by the end of the decade, he owned a string of companies, including Macmillan Publishers, the Daily Mirror, and the New York Daily News. Towards the end of the war, his platoon came across an entrenched farmhouse. I got up close to the farm door and shouted in German, "Come out with your hands up, you are completely surrounded." They came out, and I shot them all with my submachine gun. I thought my boys would be pleased, but all they said was, "That's not fair, sir. Those lads had surrendered." According to Malloy, an incredulous Maxwell had said, "Can you understand such an attitude?" Maxwell would end up buying a dog from the man that bred Hitler's German Shepherd, Blondie. He went to the kennel and found that there was only one dog available, named Barry. Maxwell snatched it away immediately. The breeder was devastated at having lost the dog, and with no hope of keeping the kennel open, the man committed. Maxwell can be seen grinning with the dog in a photo. He would go on to say, "Do you know, the other officers felt sorry for him." His hands spread in disbelief. "Can you believe it? Sorry for the man who bred dogs for Hitler," with no mind that he'd just bought a dog off the man who'd bred Hitler's dogs. After the war, and with financial aid from MI6, Maxwell began his publishing empire, and from then on, Maxwell's character would make him an infamous figure. He would become a media mogul and an MP. In fact, as an MP, his manipulation and lying would be put to use in a new business. Aware of his brutish nature, his fellow MPs all balked at the possibility that Maxwell could take over and run the catering department at the Houses of Parliament. But to their shock, he did, and was making a profit. It was astounding. Until it was revealed in a Sunday Times article that Maxwell was cooking the books even in the Houses of Parliament. Allegedly, Maxwell had used an unorthodox method of bookkeeping. As well as including the Treasury subsidy within the profits, he omitted to mention several significant expenditures. When the accounts were submitted to the Exchequer, the £20,000 profit was revised downwards to just £1,787. After they'd been audited, this figure was revised again to a £3,400 loss. Maxwell would spend 6 years in Parliament from 1964 to 1970, serving as a Labour MP. The fact he could so blatantly lie and cheat even as a public official lays his character bare. Commons gossip at the time of the catering affair suggested Maxwell had sold off most of the Palace of Westminster's wine cellar, one of the best in Europe at the time, to an anonymous buyer in an attempt to cover his losses. The rumours led to nothing. But as Maxwell's biographer John Preston writes, in the years to come, few guests who dined at Headington Hall went away without remarking on the outstandingly good wine that had been served with their meal. Knowing the truth was impossible with Maxwell. The truth was however he twisted it. While a guest on the BBC radio show Desert Island Discs, Maxwell waxes on about his refined musical sensibilities. Only much later is it revealed that his wife and his son Ian picked all of his suggestions for him. But Maxwell's charm is so convincing that you'd never know.
He could sell his life story to Hollywood for a blockbusting miniseries. He was born in Czechoslovakia, the son of a peasant farmer. He became a Member of Parliament, possibly the only chairman of the House of Commons Catering Subcommittee to speak 9 languages. And what's dictated your choice? Is it just a good tune, or is it, are all these records, do they contain memories for you, moments?
They contain memories. They have moved me when I first heard them.
Right, let's have a first choice of record. What shall that be?
The first movement of Mozart's Symphony No. 40 in G minor, played by the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Carl Böhm.
And his family lived in fear of him. He was known for having an uncanny ability for honing in on people's weaknesses. Not only did this come from the fact that he bugged phones and offices so that he knew what his detractors and colleagues were saying about him, but because he was a master manipulator. His son Ian remarked, "He had this ability to look straight through you and know exactly what you were thinking. You had to be very well prepared, or he'd just tear into you." It was as if he was literally uncivilized, like some great woolly mammoth stalking through a primeval forest, wholly unaware of things like good and evil. His youngest daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, forgotten in the turmoil of the death of Maxwell's son Michael, she was hardly given a glance and became anorexic while still a toddler. The neglect that she experienced was so severe. While only 3 years old, she said to her mother, "Mummy, I exist." By the time of his mysterious death, it was presumed at the time that he was urinating over the side of his boat, the Lady Ghislaine, and had fallen in, but pathologists could not agree on his cause of death. Conspiracies linger around his passing to this day. The jig was finally up and the house of cards began to fall. In total, £763 million was missing. The debt was so exorbitant it was believed to be a Guinness World Record. And then of course there was the human cost. As the manager of one of Maxwell's companies put it, throughout the length and breadth of the land, there are people going to bed at night wondering if they will wake up to any future at all. While Mirror Group shareholders were wiped out, arguably the biggest losers were the pensioners, who had 460 million looted from their fund. Despite a partial government bailout, as well as money from the investment bankers who advised Maxwell, most pensioners had to accept a 50% cut in the value of their pensions. When he was asked what he and his fellow Mirror pensioners would like to do to Maxwell, the man took a few moments to compose himself before saying, "We feel like digging him up and hanging him." The account described comes from John Preston's simply astonishing biography, Fall. It is well worth the read. Thank you for watching.